Biden and the radical left are attacking every single rung of the ladder that helped me climb. And that's why I'm announcing today that I'm running for president of the United States of America.
President of the United States of America, baby. That was Senator Tim Scott. He just had to throw in something about the radical left. I don't know about a radical left, but I definitely know about a radical right. But that was his announcement. The rep filed his candidacy with the Federal Elections Commission, the FEC, on Friday, which you can see here. That is it right there. He is doing the daggone thing. He is absolutely in this race. Now, back in April, Senator Scott launched an exploratory committee so that everyone honestly knew what was coming. It's really no surprise. He was exploring. This was a serious exploration, and here we are. Now, according to an advisor, Senator Scott got a lot of cash to blow. He got a lot of money to blow on this race. Senator Tim Scott's campaign has brought 5.5 million in television ads that will air statewide in the early voting states of Iowa and New Hampshire. The ads will run through the first GOP presidential debate in a bye that includes broadcast TV, cable, satellite, and radio. This is coming from CBS News. Scott's campaign will also launch what his advisor said was a substantial 7-figure digital ad campaign during that period. This is the largest candidate ad buy of the 2024 GOP primary campaign to date. Scott enters the race with $22 million cash on hand. Now, Scott was the first black senator, US senator that is, because we know that states have state senators and state reps. He was the first African-American federal senator elected from the South since Reconstruction. He is positioning himself as the optimistic candidate in the 2024 Republican field. That is what he is doing. Jackson?
What was that dude's name who was running? Maybe it was around Obama time. He's like, we're gonna go to this state, we're gonna go to that state. He was like, yeah, like, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, Howard Dean, Governor Howard Dean.
Yeah, Howard Dean. Yeah. That reminded me just a little bit of that. But I actually was looking into this, and I think that the reality is that Tim Scott, he knows that he's not going to become president. But as you pointed out, he's one of the biggest fundraisers in the Republican Party. And so him being on the campaign trail, talking about Republican ideas, shaking hands with different types of donors, and making connections, overall, it'll be a good move for his career. Just, when you count the X and O's, he has no chance of becoming president. His first cardinal sin is being a black man in the Republican Party. So that just eliminates it first and foremost. But other than that, right now, the Republican Party is still pretty much entirely behind Trump. With every week that passes, Ron DeSantis is actually losing points. And so Tim Scott's entire campaign, though, is basically just going to be like, and he's already said it, basically like, America's not a racist place because look at me, I'm a black man and I'm successful. So that's pretty much what he's going to say at every stop. And it's gonna raise money for the Republicans. So this is really just a big fundraising tour for the GOP.
Yeah, and you know what? One black man, one black woman, one black person does not make for a systemic change, and people need to understand that. Even on the Democratic side, I mean, you point out that his a hurdle for him will be being a black man in the GOP. I would argue that is also a hurdle for black people in the Democratic Party as well. We've only had one black president in the history of this country and counting, just one. So one does not mean that the system does not need fixed. So Senator Tim Scott is in this race. He's gonna spice it up in a whole lot of different ways, and we'll see what happens. And I don't know, Jackson, maybe for him, I mean, certainly he's a relatively young man. So, he could be laying the foundation for future endeavors or vice president, who knows? But he's in the race and he is obviously running. And we're gonna keep an eye on both the Democratic side of the ledger and the Republican side of the ledger. Now let's go to President Donald J. Trump. He's not bullying Senator Tim Scott so far, no nickname yet. let's take a look at what President Trump put out on his Truth Social. Good luck to Senator Tim Scott in entering the Republican primary race. It is rapidly loading up with lots of people, and Tim is a big step up from Ron DeSantis, who is totally unelectable. Underline it, underscore it, message in a bottle, baby, exclamation point on that. Woo, President Donald Trump. Now I don't agree much. Y'all put Jackson up, keep the quote, keep that up. I don't agree much with President Donald J. Trump. Let's just say 99.9% of the time, we will not agree. But when he goes in on Ron DeSantis, baby, get the popcorn out. I love to see it because Governor Ron DeSantis, based on his actions, the things that he has done and doing so far in the great state of Florida is dangerous for America. And it sends us back down a path of generations gone by, even though some of those people are still walking the face of this earth right now. But it really, from what he's doing to the LGBTQ plus community, what he's doing to the Black community, all of that stuff, you name it. Him taking over the education system, telling educators what they can teach and what they cannot teach in the classroom, especially as it pertains to African-American history in this country. His fight with Disney. I mean, who in the heaven fights with Disney unless you're fighting on behalf of the workers? And Jackson, you and I both know he is not fighting on behalf.
No, he ain't doing that. He definitely ain't doing that.
Fight with Disney, it makes absolutely no sense. So let me finish what President Donald J. Trump had to say, because I really when he go in on Ronnie boy, I love it so much. Who is totally unelectable. I got opportunity zones done with Tim, a big deal that has been highly successful. Good luck, Tim. And you know, Jackson, I wonder if the president, if Senator Tim Scott escapes getting a special name from President Donald J. Trump, that in and of itself will be a miracle.
It will be, and I think he probably will, because he doesn't see him as any kind of real threat. And too, like Ron DeSantis is kind of like his most direct threat, but also just in terms of Trump's, one track. Yeah, everyone has to be loyal to me, mine, but I'm not loyal to anyone else. In a lot of ways, Donald Trump put Ron DeSantis where he is. So it's kind of a different dynamic. Like you said, like, oh, me and Tim, we passed some laws together and it's really good. And Tim hasn't said anything against Donald Trump whatsoever. So if that changes, though, if he were to start talking bad about Trump, then then a nickname would absolutely come out. But yeah, you're right. That broken clock situation when Trump goes after Ron DeSantis, it's great every time you see it.
Every single time you see it. But we'll see what Senator Scott does. You make a good point. As long as he doesn't go full frontal on President Trump probably will not go full frontal on him. Now, Senator Scott has said some interesting things on stage. Let's take a look.
As a freshman in high school, I wasn't doing very well. As he said, I failed 4 subjects: Spanish and English, world geography, and civics. Now, for those of you not familiar with civics is the study of politics. I will say this, though. I'll say this. Hey, hallelujah. Yes. I'll say this, though. I'll say this. After 10 years in the Senate, I am not the only one failing civics in the nation's capital. I'm not the only one.
Well, I really don't get that. I'm not, that just the correlation he's using is not making a whole lot of sense to me, but it makes sense to him. He's telling a part of his story, and his story is his story. So, I'm not gonna argue with it. So here are the folks that have announced that they are running for president so far. And this is still very young. We still got a long way to go. Who's running for president in 2024? Well, here they are. On the Democratic side, you have President Joe Biden running for re-election. You have Marianne Williamson and you have RFK, Robert Kennedy Jr. on the Democratic side. Let us note that the DNC so far has said that they will not have any debates. You have a lot of mainstream media folks saying that there are not any real candidates in air quotes. You can't see me air quoting. Air quotes, no real candidates in the race. Like somebody has made them the deciders of who's real and who is not real. I mean, last time I checked, Marianne Williamson and RFK are pretty real to me. I mean, they walking, they talking, they're real, but that's that. And on the Republican side, we have former President Donald J. Trump. We have former Governor Nikki Haley. We got Ramaswamy, Hutchinson, Elders, and Scott. And then other Republicans who are expected to run, none other than Governor Ron DeSantis, AKA DeSanctimonious, and former Vice President Pence. Your final thoughts on this, Jack?
I forgot Larry Elder was running for president until you just
I did too. But I will tell you, before I'm sorry, because I'm jumping on your comments. I mean, they got some diversity happening on the Republican side so far, as compared to the Democratic side so far. And you all listen, we're saying so far. This is how it stands as of today. Things will change rapidly as time goes on. Jackson.
And out of the people on the Republican list, well, you know, Pence, he can't stop talking about cutting Social Security and Medicare. Nikki Haley actually does a very good job roasting Ron DeSantis too. If you haven't checked that out, I highly recommend it. It's quite funny. Ramaswamy wants to raise the voting age to 25. Asa Hutchinson is like, yeah, we're going to sign a national abortion ban. And Larry Elder's insane. And Tim Scott, I guess, isn't horrible, but he doesn't really have a shot. So, you know, he's not great.
But you did point out, Jackson. I mean, I was thinking the same thing, but you said it. I mean, when this man was asked a direct question about was this nation founded on racism or anti-blackness or bigotry, he said, "Oh no, absolutely not." And the Vice President Harris, you know, I'm gonna just put the facts out there. She was asked the same thing and she gave the same answer. And I really do have a problem when black folks just can't simply tell the truth about the history of this nation. It may be something that you don't want to be true, but you can't rewrite the history of this nation. Those are the facts. And anybody to deny that, they wrong. We got all the receipts. You want to talk about receipts? We got all the receipts on this. And it's just, and to me, it's self-loathing, especially for any black person to say that's not true. And then for Swamy, you know, he argued Don Lemon down on CNN about the history of black people and what really set black people free. So a lot of interesting people. That's my PG version. Running on the Republican side, and we see what's happening on the Democratic side. And I hope more people get in the race on both the GOP and the Republicans. I mean, the GOP is the Republicans, but both the GOP side and the Democratic side. The more the merrier, baby. Y'all just go ahead and jump in. The water is fine. This is a representative democracy. There are no kings and queens. Nobody should have a coronation. So if people want to run, let them run. Now, you may not like that they're running, but they have every right to run. Some people are running for very selfish reasons, in my opinion, but here we are. So we will keep you updated as this race continues to heat up, baby. Nice and hot.